They say love makes you blind, but lust makes you see only what you want to see. This is the story of how dopamine turns the human mind into a slave, of how your body's most powerful reward chemical can make you chase illusions, destroy discipline, and mistake desire for destiny. This is the dopamine trap. Imagine this. You're scrolling late at night. The room is silent, your phone glowing against your face. And suddenly she appears, not real, not close, but close enough. Something in you wakes up. Something primal, ancient, automatic. You pause, you stare, and in that moment, dopamine floods your brain. That small surge of pleasure isn't harmless. It's a whisper from evolution saying, this is what you need. This is survival. But in the 21st century, that ancient mechanism doesn't serve you anymore. It enslaves you. Because dopamine, the very chemical that drives human progress, can also destroy human purpose. See, dopamine isn't pleasure, it's anticipation of pleasure. It's the spark that says, just one more look, one more touch, one more message. When you chase that spark, through lust, through porn, through constant desire for validation, you're not chasing love, you're chasing a chemical high. And the more you chase it, the less you feel it. That's the trap. Modern lust isn't about attraction anymore. It's about access, endless options, infinite novelty. And our brains are built for scarcity, whilst they can't handle abundance. When a man's dopamine system gets hijacked by lust, it's not just sexual, it's psychological. It rewires the way he sees women, relationships, and even himself. He stops seeing women as people and starts seeing them as dopamine triggers. He stops chasing purpose and starts chasing pixels. He stops living in the real world and lives inside the next hit. But how did we get here? Once upon a time, desire was meant to bond us, to create families, to give meaning to survival. Now, desire is entertainment. And when entertainment becomes addiction, your brain stops caring about meaning. Your focus shrinks. Your motivation dies. Your attention span collapses. And suddenly, you're not a man chasing dreams. You're a man chasing dopamine. Scientists call this the reward prediction error. Every time you get a hit, a like, a text, a seductive image, your brain releases dopamine. But not because you got something valuable. It releases it because you expected something exciting. The difference between what you expect and what you get, that's where the addiction lives, so the brain keeps you chasing. Never satisfied. Always wanting more. That's why lust never ends with satisfaction. It ends with emptiness. Here's the scary part. Dopamine doesn't just affect your mood, it reshapes your brain. MRI scans show that repeated dopamine overload, like from porn or lustful indulgence, reduces dopamine receptors in your brain. Meaning, you need more stimulation just to feel normal. That's why the first time felt amazing, but the 10th time, it barely feels real. And so begins the spiral. The endless search for the next extreme, the next fantasy, the next fix. Your brain learns to prefer the chase over the connection. Let's talk about relationships. When you meet someone new, your brain lights up with dopamine. It's excitement, novelty, mystery. That's why early love feels like obsession. But as the novelty fades, dopamine drops and reality sets in. Now you have two choices. You either evolve into deeper love, fueled by oxytocin and trust, or you go hunting for another dopamine hit. That's why so many people keep jumping from one relationship to another thinking, maybe I just haven't found the right person yet. But it's not the person you're addicted to. It's the feeling. It's the dopamine. Lust is not evil. It's primal energy, powerful and creative. But when uncontrolled, it becomes destructive. It makes men impulsive. It ruins focus, weakens willpower, and turns ambition into anxiety. Why? Because dopamine doesn't reward achievement. It rewards anticipation. That's why a man can scroll for hours, fantasize for days, and do nothing real in his life. He's burning all his motivation on imaginary rewards. There's a reason ancient monks, warriors, and philosophers warned about lust. They weren't afraid of pleasure. They were afraid of enslavement. When you lose control of your desires control you. And when your mind is ruled by dopamine, you stop being the driver of your life. You become the passenger, chasing the next thrill, forgetting where you were going. Let's go deeper, inside the brain. Dopamine is produced in a part of your brain called the ventral tegmental area. From there, it travels to the nucleus accumbens, the reward center. This pathway evolved to make you pursue food, love, survival. But in the modern world, artificial triggers like porn, social media, seductive content, hack that system. Your brain doesn't know the difference between real and fake, it just reacts. Every time you indulge, you train your brain to expect instant pleasure. And when real life doesn't give it, your brain punishes you with emptiness, boredom, restlessness. That's why you can have everything, a good life, job, even love, and still feel unsatisfied. Because dopamine has taught your brain that real life is too slow. Now let's talk about what happens when you quit. When you stop feeding the dopamine machine and when you pull away from lustful habits and your brain rebels, you feel flat, unmotivated, lost. That's not weakness, that's withdrawal. Your brain is rewiring itself back to balance. This phase can last weeks, sometimes months. But if you push through it, something incredible happens. You start feeling real pleasure again from real things, a sunset, a conversation, a goal achieved. Not the illusion of pleasure, but authentic satisfaction. That's when you realize dopamine wasn't the enemy. It was your misuse of it. Here's the hard truth. You can't escape dopamine. You can only learn to control it. And the way to do that is to stop seeking cheap highs and start building deep fulfillment. You must replace artificial pleasure with purpose. Replace lust with connection. Replace escape with effort. Because the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. Connection to reality, to people, to purpose. Let me tell you something the dopamine trap doesn't want you to know. When you stop chasing pleasure, pleasure starts chasing you. When you discipline your desires, you become powerful. When you redirect your energy from fantasy to reality, your entire world changes. Women stop being distractions. They become mirrors, reflecting who you are and what you value. And lust, instead of enslaving you, becomes fuel for creativity, focus, passion, and drive. Because the truth is, dopamine isn't bad. It's divine. It's the fire that built civilizations, art, love, and evolution. But that same fire can burn your life to ashes if you don't control it. So the question isn't how do I escape lust? It's how do I rise above it? You rise above by mastering your mind, by learning to delay gratification, by realizing that what feels good now often costs you later. You rise above by choosing purpose over pleasure, discipline over desire, reality over illusion. That's how you break the trap. Remember this, dopamine is the messenger of desire. It can make you a creator or a consumer, a king or a slave. You decide which. Because every time you reach for lust, you're not choosing pleasure, you're choosing powerlessness. But every time you resist, you're not losing pleasure and you're gaining control, and that control, that's real freedom. So next time you feel that pull, that craving, that rush, and pause, breathe. Remember who's in charge, because you are not your urges. You are not your dopamine. You are the consciousness that decides where that energy goes. And if you can master that, and you can master anything,